Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and we're lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Taylor Marshall, his run for the presidency, and we're going to do also a little background info on him. And we welcome Brother Alexis to the program.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. Your apostolate is part of the work of our order, Order Militaris Catholicus, which is a Catholic security initiative for the defense of Catholics and Christians persecuted around the world. And we do a lot on social media and have been out there since 2016, whether you know it or not, though we're mostly censored by controlled opposition and groups like that. We speak frankly. We speak sincerely. We love the church, and we're willing to die for Christ and his church and his people. So we have been advocating for at least 4 years that Catholics should run for political office. This is the greatest thing you can do to save the society you live in, and it is a duty of everyone who truly loves Jesus Christ, our King, and wants to see him reign in society. So we are absolutely delighted that some Catholic who's well known around the country wants to run for political office and has announced it. So we're going to tell you about Taylor Marshall and his background, his political views, and give some commentary about if we think he's going to be successful and what he needs to do to be successful. So first, most of you know him by his videos, but not all of you know him by his biography. So we're going to start with his biography since we're a secure, Order Militaris Catholicus is a security initiative. We have a security company in Montana, and so we can look up people's backgrounds and find out who they are. We do that for the public good. Not going to reveal you any private information of Dr. Marshall, but just his public record. So AJ, who is Taylor Marshall? Where was he born? Where he went to school? Who's he married to?
So, Taylor Reed Marshall, born March 29, 1978, in Fort Worth, Texas. He graduated from Texas A&M University, summa cum laude, in 2000 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy. He then went to Westminster Theological Seminary in Glenside, Pennsylvania, then to Nashotah House in Wisconsin. Marshall was ordained a priest of the Episcopal Church in 2006 by Jack Eaker, the Bishop of Fort Worth. Marshall had previously served as a youth minister at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, while an Episcopal deacon. Shortly thereafter, in 2006, he and his wife converted into Catholicism. In 2009, Marshall earned his Master of Arts degree in philosophy, and in 2011 earned a Doctor in Philosophy degree in philosophy at the University of Dallas.
University of Dallas is a Catholic school.
Catholic, yep. So from January 2012 until June 2013, he served as Chancellor and Dean of the now defunct College of St. John's Fisher and Thomas More in Fort Worth, Texas. Prior to his work at the college, he was the professor of philosophy, and then Marshall was also formerly served as assistant director of the Archdiocese of Washington Catholic Information Center. He then founded the New St. Thomas Institute, an online Catholic theology educational program, and the Troops of St. George, a Catholic scouting organization.
Well, most people know this part of his background, but now we've uncovered things that I had never heard anyone speak about. So there's more of Taylor Marshall. And what did he do next?
So in between, after he finished working at the college, In 2015, October 2nd, 2015, and between November 3rd, 2022, January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2018, he received a doctorate of physical therapy at the Murphy Deming College of Healing Sciences.
And he's worked for several physical therapy centers. What's his specialty?
Children physical therapy.
And rehab, which is actually quite admirable. I'm surprised no one knows about that. He's the father of 8 children. What's the name of his wife?
Yeah, let me go to that.
He married in 1999 in the Anglican Church.
Joy McPherson.
Joy McPherson. And now let's talk something about Taylor Marshall's social status. You know, to get a doctorate is quite expensive. No one in my family, except my father on the GI Bill, got a doctorate, even though perhaps we could have gone to it, we could never afford that. But Taylor Marshall has 2 doctorates and a master's degree and undergraduate. So I kind of get the impression he comes from a family with money. So what can we say about his finances, AJ?
So whenever he was either studying, for philosophy or when he's doing the studies in Pennsylvania for seminary or for the physical therapy training, the apartments he stayed at were very posh, expensive. Then when he finally decided to get buy homes, first one was a $300,000 home. Then it went up until finally his last 2 homes, both were $1 million each.
And more, the value more than that, if it actually market value. So Taylor Marshall isn't really working class, although he is a man who does work and holds jobs and get and things. And you could say 8 children, you need a big house, but a $1.2 or $1.6 million house isn't in a really nice neighborhood. I'd say we looked at Taylor Marshall's house. It's a very nice home, and so I compliment him on he and his wife on their choice in architecture even. Now, is Taylor Marshall a law-abiding man? Does he have a criminal record?
Yeah, he does have a criminal record.
And are they major or minor things?
All misdemeanors.
And what are they, so that everyone knows?
Failure to maintain financial responsibility, which is unable to pay fines or anything, or if you hit someone and you can't pay the penalty, that is failure to maintain financial responsibility. That is a Class C misdemeanor in Brazos, Texas.
It could also mean that he was driving an uninsured vehicle, correct? Mm-hmm. And that was in his college days?
Yep.
Okay. Next.
On May 12, 2000, he drove on the sidewalk, again, Class C misdemeanor, and they found him guilty, also in Brazos, Texas.
Okay, that's hard to figure out how that happened, but you'd have to see what the sidewalks are like in Brazos, Texas. They may be wider streets. And the third?
Speeding, 81 and a 65. That was on March 24th, 1997.
Okay, but Texas has big roads and long distances, so they're really not any grave moral offense or criminal offense, though he's cleaned up his act since, and he has no recent records of that. And well, if you father of 8 kids, you might be rushing back and forth. So that's Taylor Marshall, and I'm quite impressed by his academic career. I'd say that's quite impressive. My father taught at Columbia University. My mother had a master's also from Columbia, so my father was an academic, so I can say that is an impressive record what he has with his 2 doctorates. And while you know about his internet apostolate, his YouTube channel alone, he's gotten over 95 million views since he started, and I think that was like 2007, right after he converted. But How did Taylor Marshall get known to all Catholics? What really pushed him to stardom, as you might say?
So when he converted, he went on a program with another convert that run the Journey Home Network, Marcus Grodi, and that was on EWTN. There, he started to get involved with doing programs and stuff, and EWTN helped him with his reach. And then also something he doesn't mention, he's also a member of Opus Dei.
Yeah, he was a numer in Opus Dei, although I think in recent years he said he's no longer affiliated with them. But Opus Dei has big influence at EWTN because EWTN wanted exclusive coverage of the Vatican under John Paul II, so they made a deal to have Opus Dei interns in their office. And Opus Dei controls or owns more than 100 newspapers, radio stations, and television stations around the world. And it's widely said that they got the money from the CIA, billions of dollars worth. So Marshall's career begins in Washington, really. He works for the Diocese of Washington. And if you know anything about the Diocese of Washington, that should be something that prospective voters ask about. And why he became an Anglican priest and then converted instead of just converting and not becoming an Anglican priest. Why didn't the Diocese of Washington ordain him as a Catholic priest, as many Anglican priests have been? Not all of them are. And I won't speak to that because that's a very private matter. But now let's talk about politics, because Taylor Marshall basically speaks on every topic from the Holy Trinity to not using seed oils in Lent and Advent, I should say. So he's pretty well known for that, but his political views are not as well known. So what did you find out, AJ, in your research?
So recently he became very pro-Trump during the presidency of Donald Trump. He even made, I guess, if for those who are pro-Trump, the pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago to one of the parties or get-together Trump was holding down there. And but in the past he was partners with Tim Gordon to help get Tim Gordon off the ground and do his now Rules Retrograde podcasts. And that's when I came to learn about Gordon's book, Catholic Republic, and they talk about it, bash the Holy Roman Empire a little bit, and say the Constitution's a good thing.
Bash the Holy Roman Empire. Okay. So did Taylor Marshall write a review of that book, and can you read what he said about Tim Gordon's book, Catholic Republic?
Yeah. Timothy Gordon impressively substitutes the crypto-Catholic political philosophy present in the American Revolution in the founding of the United States of America. St. Thomas Aquinas asserted that man cannot attain his end by nature, but only by grace because of the exalted character of the end. Gordon demonstrates the natural law tradition of America, in which he was conceived, must also be perfected by his grace, without turning to the supernatural graces of Catholicism. America will not heal, elevate, or perfect her created nature. Gordon is provocatively accurate. America will perish without the philosophical and theological tradition of Catholicism.
Okay, so is Tim Gordon a constitutionalist?
Yep.
And so he thinks that restoring America is restoring the observance of the U.S. Constitution. What is wrong with that view? If we go back to the history of where the Constitution came from, what came before, since you are actually related and by blood and marriage to two of the Adams and George Washington, I think you have the right to speak on that.
As you if you watched their program on restoring the proper political government of the United States on the Articles of Confederation. The government that they wanted was Christian. They made sure it said it was to protect the Christian faith. And only one document of the government says that, and it's the Articles of Confederation. George Washington Adams sat in the hot courthouse in Philadelphia, freezing temps in the battlefields in winter, not for the Masonic Constitution that was passed illegally in Delaware, but for a Christian government. That is what the men and women who fought and died wanted: a Christian government, but not connected to the King of England.
And the Constitution, what place does Jesus Christ have in the Constitution of the United States?
None.
Was he mentioned?
Nope.
Is there even a reference to the Ten Commandments?
Nope.
Christian tradition?
Nope.
And this is an important point. Everyone is really glad the Supreme Court just overturned Roe versus Wade. But if you have a college degree, or even if not, you're quite, and you read the decision of the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, and the majority justices are all Catholic, what do? They go back to the legal tradition of Catholic England. Mm-hmm. And they cite laws passed under the relatives of you, AJ, the Plantagenets, the Tudors. I should say the pre-Tudors even. Laws that were universally accepted throughout Western Europe because it was Catholic. And from those principles, they say the Constitution can't be read in such a way as to allow abortion. The same court says it does allow sodomy or sodomic marriage, so the court it's not infallible, obviously, because actually the conclusion is the same. It doesn't allow either of those things. So this is what's going on in America today. We're in a narrative where legal tradition is attempting to be read according to a Marxist dialectic, and that is the Rothschild plan, because the Rothschilds want to put one of the members of their family at the head of the world government. For that, they have to eliminate not only national identity, but even religious identity. And they have to get everyone to accept a view of the world that is completely amoral and has nothing, is totally divorced from Old and New Testament spirituality and morality. So this is a very important point. You cannot restore the United States of America. You cannot make her great again unless you put Christ back in the picture, and not just as a token above the doorway, but where no law can be passed which violates his teaching or biblical morality. And this is the temptation the American Republic is under, whether she can exist without Christ or not. And if you read anything about the American Revolution, the early founding fathers, you will find almost none of them who agree with anything what is being done today. They would totally repudiate what's going on in Washington today. And even their form of government. I love those Articles of Confederation, because in the Articles of Confederation, there is not a Senate and a House. There's only the president and a council of the governors of the states. Imagine that. That means we'd only have 50 people, and they would vote from their own state houses, and there'd be a president. And they would decide, the governors would decide on spending. They would decide on the federal budget. You imagine how many problems we could have avoided in the United States. There would have been never a violation of states' rights, because no governor would do that. He'd need to be impeached by his own legislature. That and a lot of other things, especially that it was a pro-Christian government. So what is Taylor Marshall's position? What could he possibly do in it? And what would be the end result if he thinks the Constitution is the way to go?
His idea of his style of government was an Indian total failure. You can't not restore Jesus Christ into this nation by restoring the Constitution, because Jesus Christ is not in the Constitution. The GOP in 1874 made sure that Jesus Christ would not ever be put into the Constitution when Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox came together for a constitutional convention to do just that.
And we see this in some of the comments Marshall has begun to make. He says he would be against no-fault divorce. Now, no-fault divorce is where you can get a divorce from your wife or your wife from your husband, her husband, without anyone claiming it's the fault of anyone. So it's basically marriage on demand and divorce on demand. And it's a complete is completely contrary to the Catholic notion of matrimony. Okay, so usually in Catholic speaking, we distinguish marriage from matrimony, that is connubium from matrimonium, because one is a natural contract and one is a supernatural contract. Catholics can never be in favor of divorce, and you can't be in favor of more restrictive laws on divorce. You have to be against divorce. And if you know your a little Catholic political history, which evidently Marshall, I assume he doesn't know, because I assume he has goodwill. When the King of Naples in the 1820s, I think it was 1822, had his legislature and himself, he passed a law which will require the civil registration of Catholic marriages. The popes went after him with several encyclicals denouncing what he did, saying the state has no authority to register marriages, because marriages are act of Christian religion outside of the authority of the state. And if the registration of marriages would be tolerated, the state would slowly encroach over the institution and definition of marriage to bring about abominations of divorce or forms of marriage which are contrary to Christ's law. And that is absolutely what has happened, totally prophetic. So the Catholic position is that all civil recognition of marriage, registration of marriage, that is, be ended, and that the Christian churches alone, or each religious group alone, define what its marriage is. So there'd be no more marriage in front of the justice of peace. You either are married in a Catholic church or a Protestant church or a synagogue or in a mosque or in an Orthodox church, or you're not married, okay? Because it's a religious right. It is not something that exists of itself. And if you are, you don't go to the town halls and they register your marriage. It's the church determines your marriage, or the religious group, and no one else. And they set up the rules for the kind of marriage you're in. And that's the Catholic position. Most people would find that, almost strange to say, because they don't know what has been. But that will stop a lot of funny things going on. What's the other Catholic position in education? It's not public education. The Catholic position is Catholic children should only be educated in a Catholic institution or by their parents. Never non-Christians, perverts, or some politically controlled institution. That's not the Catholic position. So if you're going to let's restore the Constitution, you're ending up in big problems. Big problems. You would be saying, I'm going to serve Jesus Christ and restore Christ's kingdom, but I'm going to accept a document that excludes Christ from the kingdom and his kingdom from the kingdom. Not to mention that Catholic governments have always been monarchies, So a constitutional monarchy is in harmony with the Catholic form of a vision for the world, but not a non-monarchical constitutional republic by whatever the Constitution is. So there's some problems there. Has Marshall done lots of videos on political views?
Not that I could find. And I searched his channel and went to his playlist, see what he had on politics. Uh, it was mostly Trump this, Trump that.
He was on the committee of Catholics for Trump, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Was he one of the ones who said if you don't vote for Trump, you're committing a mortal sin?
I believe so.
Is Donald Trump a Christian candidate?
No.
Is Donald Trump an anti-globalist?
Nope.
What are some basic facts we can cite to determine that? Because I know a lot of the audience might be pro-Trumpers. We're not anti-Trump, but we want to tell you the truth about a Trump. We did a whole show on Donald Trump, at least I think several shows. But what's a summary, AJ, for those
Yeah,
who haven't
so
seen them? What's
yeah,
his religion?
yeah, let me get to that. So the religion of Donald Trump is Norman Vincent Peale. It is the self-help guru order attitude toward life and business and the positive thinking philosophy.
Yeah, it's neither Christian nor non-Christian. It's just a completely secularist. And does his family have any association with the Masonic Lodge?
Oh yeah, the uh, Skull and Bones Lodge. His father took, was it $1 million loan to
No,
start?
he got a contract. Yeah.
Yeah, contract from one of the head Skull and Bones members that began his empire of building homes, not homes, but his
Real estate.
yeah, real estate empire.
And is Skull and
Then
Bones a benign lodge or is it a malign lodge?
malign, very.
And they've plotted and executed the murder of at least how many hundreds of millions of people?
I almost want to say 1 billion.
Yeah, that's probably right. So being pro-Trump, if you're a good Catholic, must mean that you have not studied any of your history and don't know anything about the man other than maybe his tweets, and shows great political naivete. Okay, so, but people can overcome naivete, and he's an intelligent man, so that's the thing. Now, Taylor Marshall, you say he's an Anglican. Is he of English origin or is he another ethnicity? What do we know about that? And what has he himself said?
He has publicly said his grandmother was Jewish.
Yeah, or maybe it was his great-great-grandmother. Okay, as a Jewish grandmother. And we're talking about in the absolute female line. So would Jews consider him a Jew?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, AJ, you've had several YouTube channels and you've been canceled off the face of the earth several times for like nothings. Has Taylor Marshall talked about topics that caused you to be canceled and yet his station's not been canceled? His channel?
Yep.
He has 95 million views and he can talk about things that you're not allowed to talk about.
Yep.
So he has friends in high places.
Mm-hmm.
And did he take a leadership position on whether Benedict was the Pope or not? That was one of the most important controversies during the life of Pope Benedict, the last 10 years of his life.
Oh man, he got nasty with that. He was totally defending Bergoglio, Pope Francis, not former Bergoglio. He got really irked when someone brought up your name about what you were doing to restore Pope Benedict and what you were doing to make sure Pope Francis's election was valid. Now he's having people on, former CIA officer. Who's that former CIA officer?
Oh, Steve O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
He's trying
former
to figure
CIA
out.
officer.
Now he's trying to figure out Was Benedict really the Pope by having that guy on?
Oh, for 10 years, he couldn't figure it out. Now he has a CIA agent to help him. Okay. So you can determine for yourself whether that's someone you want to vote for the presidency. But let's talk about what Marshall would need to do to succeed. So he declared his presidential, he was going to run for the presidency. When was it? Just yesterday, or was it a couple of months ago?
March 14th, 2023.
Okay. And I didn't even hear about it, so it didn't make it around. But Marshall, you may not hear what's going on, but clearly Marshall has a very bad habit in social media. And what is that?
He has blocked a third of the Catholics on Twitter.
According to one source. Okay.
Yeah.
So that may just, use Twitter to harass people, so they're not really Catholics but claim to be. But you have to be more into dialogue. I actually personally invited Marshall to speak with me about the Benedict question many times, and many of my friends who know him and wrote him asked him, and he never had the courage to do that. He has 3 doctorates, so he can certainly trump me. I don't have any doctorates. So okay, so that's another thing. But so he's announced his candidacy. Does he already have a political organization in every state?
No.
Does he have at least one political action committee to start raising money and taking action?
No.
Has he announced what party he's running for?
No, but I'm assuming GOP.
Okay, so but wasn't last fall, wasn't it like October, that he went with some famous YouTuber in the Hispanic world from California? They went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
They got an invite.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is really strange, because if you run for the presidency, you're not going to become a friend of Donald Trump. Quite the contrary. He didn't take any of his political opponents who ran for the presidency into his administration. And that's usually the case. It's like the ultimate treachery that you run for the presidency when they're already going to run for the presidency. So I guess he had a falling out with Donald Trump. Maybe it was Donald Trump's smash and bash pro-gay party. Maybe it was that, or his current position that, restricting abortion under too much is just too much too fast. So, but Taylor Marshall has some good opinions. He talks about abortion should always be with murder and stuff like that. But can you get elected president if you don't have any political organization, AJ?
No. I mean, no.
To get on the ballot as a presidential candidate in most states requires you need someone to help you to do that. You just can't announce it.
Yeah. You need political action committees in different states. You need you need another committee that will handle the financing. And plus, you need a party to promote you, back you up, make sure what you're going to do is not going to die on your one and done.
Yeah. Now, I'm old enough to remember it. It's perhaps a bit before your time, AJ, but there was a wealthy man who ran and has created a whole independent party and ran on his own ticket. Perot was his name. Ross Perot, I think, was his first name. And I think he got like 16% of the vote, some large percent of the vote. But the party died with him because it was a party created for him. What is the Catholic approach? Should we found parties that exist only for ourselves, or we should be aiming for something higher and greater?
The party for Catholics, Christians really, shouldn't just be for yourself. It should be for the Christians, but also to help restore the nation, so that it's not all about you, but it's about helping everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think this occasion of Taylor Marshall announcing he's going to run for the president, he's been ridiculed by a lot of people and criticized a lot of people, but I think we should look at the positive is he's doing something at least that most Catholics should be doing and aren't doing. And well, it doesn't seem like he has any knowledge of how you run for the presidency, or maybe he's not intending actually to win. He just wants to use it to raise the issue. I call these token candidates or public relations candidates. They announce the presidency only so they can put it on their resume and to talk about political issues. But it's not really considered. It's not considered the professional way to do anything. It looks kind of foolish on anyone's resume that they would claim such a thing. If there was a Catholic party in America today that could put someone in the presidency and they asked me to run for the president, I would say no, I couldn't possibly win. You have to have some, as Aristotle said, you have to know thyself and know what the country needs and what you are able to do. And if you really love your country and Jesus Christ, you'll be able to see the disconnect there, if there is a disconnect. So there are some admirable Catholics in politics, and maybe they would be more, or admirable Catholics in the public sphere, maybe they would be better, And but you have to have an organization, and you have to be willing to work with Catholics to build an organization that's going to put a Catholic in the White House, even if it's not you. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that spirit, you're building on sand. You're building on sand. Now, AJ, we'll be sincere and transparent. We always sincere and transparent. I know you're kind of irked. I'm more positive than you on this declaration. Kind of before, nearly 4 years ago, wasn't it in September of 2019? You told me we should found a Catholic, someone should found a Catholic party. And what have you done in 4 years about that? And did Taylor Marshall even ever contact you?
So on the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary in 2020, I finished setting up and established the Catholic Party for America. And we have the platform, we have 12-point plan, we have videos we've done, we have historical videos that you can watch to learn about how America really was back then. And no, Taylor Marshall has never contacted us to, say, can I run on your deal and help get the machinery going that is needed to make the party work and do what it should be doing. And yeah, so he's never written or tried to reach out to us either on Gab, Twitter, Facebook. So, yeah.
Now, for transparency's sake, AJ has created the idea and done a lot of thought, and he and I have done some discussions of Catholic Party, but we haven't actually incorporated the party because we know that the time is not right. I mean, we've had maybe 50 people, 100 people write saying they're interested, but none of them ever did anything. And this is because there are some major problems in the United States right now that prevent people from actually saving America. And America's going to go down to its doom unless people wake up fast, and I mean really fast. And the problem is they're controlled by three major narratives that totally psychologically control them. They cannot think of a life outside these three narratives without their heads exploding or they having a psychological breakdown. And therefore, they would never, ever consider getting out of the slavery, the trap they're in. And the first one is individualism, the idea that the common man on the same street as you, together with you, could achieve something great. It's not just the big people dangled in front of your eyes by the television. The second is a two-party system. To think that the Democrats and Republicans give a bleep about this country, when both controlled by the same Masonic Lodge. And the third, to think that the Constitution is going to save you. That you can have a politics without God and without Jesus Christ. And that is the most difficult one because most people have been by globalist, long-planned, intended publicity campaigns, ideologic campaigns in schools, ideologic campaigns in movies, TV, theaters, social media, have become slaves to vice and addicted to immoral ways of living, so that they actually would prefer hell with their vice than heaven without. And therefore they would be inimical to a society where their vice would be outlawed, because they can't even identify with a kind of human existence when that vice didn't exist. Now, in a Catholic state, in a Christian state, not all vices are so outlawed. You just can't outlaw drunkenness all the time, intoxication, but some have to be. And because of those three narratives, most Catholics, most Christians don't even think of Christian party. What was the first thing they would say to you about, could a Christian party win? What would they say?
Well, the usual we've got, it would never win. You never get the votes. It's pointless.
Yeah, and do those people believe that Jesus Christ is God and has all authority in heaven and earth?
No.
Do they believe in the social reign of Jesus Christ?
No.
And do they believe that as a Christian, they're actually obliged to overcome those three false narratives and live in the truth?
Nope.
Yeah, so this is the big problem about a Christian or Catholic party in America. How many talking heads out there that speak this way and are trying to wake people up?
Trying to wake people up? Not many. Maybe.
Other than us. Has Taylor Marshall ever approached the problem that way?
No.
So could he lead people?
Can he lead people to it? No, because he too is sucked into that thing narrative, especially about the globalists and the Masonic idea of the government and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is something that if you're going to start, you need to start locally. You need to run for like mayor of your town. Now, if Taylor Marshall ran for mayor of his town in Texas, I think he lives in like Collegeville or something, you know, that would be much more likely to exist. He probably has enough support to raise enough money to run a campaign as mayor of the town. Mm-hmm. Whether he could win is another question. I don't know the politics of the town is probably Republican controlled. So he'd either have to run on the Republican ticket, and then he's not really a Catholic candidate. He'd need approval of the Masonic Party to do that, and he would only get that if he joined the lodge. Or he'd have to run against that ticket, and he would lose a lot of friends in town who would think that he's like a Democrat or some kind of shake up the thing, unless he already had a big local base. And this is the problem of individualism. You can have 10 million followers around the world, but if you only have 10 people in town, you're never going to be mayor.
Yeah.
And if you spend all your time on social media, you really don't know who your neighbor is. All the rule of politics is all politics is local. You have to be a handshaker, go around to all the groups and stuff. And this makes it difficult for us Catholics in the United States because we are the most hated and despised group. You try to go to the VFW and ask to give a speech to their members about Christian politics, and you won't even get an invite. They won't even call you back. Same thing as if you went to most churches who are not Catholic and asked, would you like, could I come over and talk to your congregation about putting Christ in politics? Most of them won't accept that if it comes from a Catholic, because they hate us more than they hate the devil. So you're in and we don't even talk about Hindus, Muslims, Jews, and other religions. Okay. So we are bigly disadvantaged, and worse of all, we are divided among ourselves. This is where we try to do a very constructive, approving, praiseworthy program about what Taylor Marshall's did, because the worst thing about us Catholics is we all have more knives out for one another than we do for the Masons that rule over us, and that's exactly what they want. We are doing the will of Satan in that. And it doesn't matter if you're the kind of Catholic who wouldn't vote for someone unless he goes to the Tridentine Mass, but in a certain chapel run by a certain group of priests, you're not helping the situation. You're working for Satan, okay? And the Catholic Church right now is so internally disintegrated that it's almost impossible Catholics to collaborate, because out will come one of these things like, oh, he uses the 1962 breviary, that's Masonic, and therefore he must be of the devil. I'm not going to vote for him. I'll vote for Donald Trump.
Mm.
So I'll use a comparison. Satan appears to you in all his ugly evilness, and then an angel appears to you and you see one spot on his forehead. You say, oh, he must be a fake angel because there's a spot there. I'm going to vote for Satan. And that's exactly where they have us. And that's why you shouldn't attack Taylor Marshall for running office. You should ask why you're not running for office and why you're not forming a Catholic party in your town. And there's no monopoly over Catholic Party. If you watch the shows, and AJ will put a link over to the Catholic Party for America. AJ and I have done lots of shows, and in all our shows, we say the same thing. You don't have to join our party. You could found your own Christian party in your own town. Every town in the country could have its own Christian party, and we could all form an alliance together to form a national party. Because you got to start locally. And if you can't get anyone elected locally, you're certainly not going to win the presidency.
Yeah. 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 To restore this nation, to retake it from the Masons, you don't start from the top down. You take it from the local all the way up.
Mm-hmm. And so you have to win Protestants. You have to win Protestants over. And that's why Marshall's wrong what he says about Gordon's book. It's not the graces of Catholicism. You're already in the post-Reformational narrative. Catholicism is a dirty word. Catholics in England don't even use it because that's what the Anglicans call us, Catholicism. They want to reduce our religion to ideology. You need the graces of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And if you don't talk that way, you're going to alienate all the Protestants you speak to, because Catholics don't have a monopoly on the grace of Jesus Christ. Christ calls men to believe him wherever they find him. And of course, we know and we believe Christ calls them into the Catholic Church. But the purpose of a political party isn't converting people to the Catholic faith. Okay. The purpose of the political party would see that Christ reigns in the nation, and that we can all agree on, I think. And that's the way you have to talk. So I get the impression that Marshall is goodwill, but he's just like 1,000 miles behind the game, on where he needs to go. And I would, AJ, would you like to extend an invitation to Taylor Marshall to talk on our Catholic Party for America program, talk about some of these political issues?
Yeah, if you want to talk, be generous and talk.
Mm-hmm. And any other Catholic who's interested in Catholic Party.
Mr. Gordon, if you really want to do the interview that you so kindly, well, not kindly, denied me when you said you're going to set one up, but went to talk to CPAC. Come on, let's talk.
Yeah. Now, practically, I think it's unreasonable to think that any Catholic could win the White House on a Catholic party in the next election. Unless, of course, maybe tomorrow someone won 1.2 billion in a lottery, then maybe they could do it. They'd have to hire people, but maybe they wouldn't be sincere. But so this is something Catholics have to decide to do, and we're not going to get backed by the bishops. The bishops of the United States, all members of the Democratic Party, they've all given themselves over to the global agenda, and they're all out to destroy us as much as possible. Because as Benedict said in his posthumous book, they are now functionally not Catholic. And I'm not anti-bishop, I'm not anti-Catholic, I love the Church of Christ founded, but that's just the practical reality in the United States and in many countries of the Western Hemisphere, because the Masons have spent lots of time putting their people in our church and recruiting the people in our church to their agenda. And we haven't done squat to do the opposite. And so it's a lot of work, but it's going to take people that have to rise above their little petty factionalism, who you read, who you watch, and what mass you go to, because something's more important here. It's like the barbarians at the gate. You have to start stop arguing over what kind of incense you use in the church. You have to run to the walls and take out your shields and guns and start defending the city. And you got to close the gates, you know. And so, but Catholics are just in absolute petty arguments inside their own little city, and they're not doing any of those things. And they wonder why their children are being, you know, groomed in public schools.
Yep. So this is anything else?
No, that'd be all. And I wish Taylor Marshall well, but I hope he thinks seriously about it, and hope he's transparent with his viewers to say whether he really wants to run for the presidency and promote a Catholic restoration of America, or whether he's just doing a token, I'm going to claim I'm going to run for the presidency just to, you know, put something on my resume. I mean, at this point, it's too serious of a matter to joke with, and you shouldn't play your viewers or your followers that way. That's just cruel, and that's not respectful. So I don't think that's what he's doing, but he needs to do a lot more if that's not what he's doing. And I expect him, and I'll hold him to do a lot more. And any other Catholic out there who thinks Catholics should run political office, you're obliged to do something more too. So AJ, I know we'd be glad to have you on the show and talk with you. Catholics need to talk about politics more. We do not do that, except under the false rubrics of what the Masons give us. And we need to stop that if we're going to restore this country.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. There's full.
There's full.